Hello everybody and welcome to week 4. This week we are going to be talking about measurement. Again, my name is Ali Casella. I'm your instructor for this course. You can follow me on Twitter at Ali Casella. Most of you have already done that. Hello everyone. And of course you can always send me an email, aligbc@gmail.com if you have any questions. So this week we are going to cover measurements and key performance indicators. We're also going to look at some dashboards and talk about some different tools you can use. And then I'm going to go over assignment 4 with you. Okay, first of all, we've got measurement. So when it comes to measuring things, when it comes to social media, it can really feel like you're falling down the rabbit hole, quite literally. There are so many different tools and articles out there telling you all the different metrics that you should be measuring. There's all these articles like the 100 KPIs you need to be measuring, and I think it's all crazy because you can't have 100 key performance indicators, especially when it comes to social media. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a common list of measurements that you can make, and we're going to talk about vanity metrics, whether or not they might be key performance indicators, and really help you justify measuring different things when it comes to your Twitter account. Okay, so first of all, let's know the terms so that we're all on the same page. Metrics are quantifiable measures used to gauge performance or progress. So these are things that you can measure them. The numbers can go up, they can go down, and you can report. You can report on these things. So key performance indicators are they are metrics, but they're ones that are most closely aligned with your business objectives. So, for a lot of people, certain metrics aren't going to matter to them, and it's all really going to be based on what your business goals are and what your purpose is with your Twitter account. So, there's also this thing called vanity metrics, and these are metrics that often sound great when you're reporting, but they don't give you any real measure of success on their own. And so you don't want to get stuck in the vanity metrics trap. I see a lot of consultants getting stuck in this trap when they're reporting to their clients because saying, we increased your followers by 1,000 people last month sounds a lot better than we have a click-through rate of 5%. So you really want to make sure that when you're looking at your metrics, you're not just focusing on these vanity metrics. So no single metric will do. You need to track multiple metrics. They need to be based on your goals. You need to compare your measurements over time. So for example, if you are tracking followers, then having the ability to look at them month to month, year to year, even week to week can be very important to see how things are changing. And as with many types of measurement, time will give you a much better picture of what's going on. So if you're looking at something, day to day, it's going to seem like maybe you're not making any progress. But if you're able to kind of take a step back and look at a wider picture with your metrics, you will be able to see your progress over time. Okay, followers and growth rates. We're just going to go through a bunch of typical measurements that you can make. So followers and growth rate is a quick way to assess your momentum. But remember, not every follower is created equally. So you have inactive users. There's actually a section in audience that you can go and check to see who hasn't been active on Twitter if you're following them. There are a lot of bots out there. There is also a lot of junk out there, like the hashtag follow for follow accounts. I find that these are either bots or just teenagers looking to get tons of followers. So you do want to look at followers and growth rate. It is an important measurement to see how you're doing, to see how whether or not you're actually building a community. But if you are looking only at this metric, it is a vanity metric. So this alone is not going to be enough to give you a picture of how things are going on your Twitter account. Mentions is a measure of how many people are talking about you. So you can measure your brand awareness, and this includes @replies and brand mentions. You can find this using search. So you want to know how many people are talking about you and how many people are conversing about you. And although people might not be, so measurements don't gauge sentiment, is what I want to say. So you might have 500 mentions, but if they are all negative mentions, is that a good thing? So these are the types of things that you have to be thinking about when you are talking about different metrics. Reach is a measure of potential. So it's pretty useless on its own, but it can be a very helpful secondary metric to give you a bigger picture. I would consider this to be a vanity metric as well. So the potential of your tweet is basically how many people could possibly see the tweet. It's not how many people actually saw the tweet. It's what could you, or what is your potential. So that's why it's vanity. It's not a number of impressions, which is of course my next slide. So impressions is how many people actually see your tweet. It's different from reach because reach is the, remember, a measure of potential. Impressions is knowing how many people have actually seen it. So knowing these impressions for each variable can help you learn what resonates best with your audience. So again, on its own, it's a vanity metric because just because it's been on somebody's screen doesn't mean they've actually clicked on it or engaged with that tweet. But it is a good indicator of whether or not maybe your tweet timing is good if you're trying to get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible. So there are uses for these vanity metrics, but we don't want to be relying on them on their own. Retweets can be a way to measure how your message resonates with your audience. You do want to be careful because some people will retweet and that will have a comment attached to it and it'll be negative. So when it comes to measuring these things, would you count a negative retweet? If you do want to count a negative retweet, then you need to justify it. So again, when we're talking about these numbers, you really have to be thinking about what is it that matters? Why do we want to be measuring these retweets? And do all retweets count? So here's what I want to know. Would you count a negative retweet in your measurements? So if you're going through your metrics and you're reporting to your boss, and one of the things that you've decided on is measuring retweets, would you consider something with a negative sentiment attached to it to be a good thing or a bad thing? Would you want to report on that? What would you do? Conversations is another measurement that you can make, and I quite like this one, especially when it comes to brands like nonprofits, because engaging with the community is really important for those types of organizations. So this is the back and forth discussion with another user. So your DMs would count here and @replies, people that are talking back and forth. So not just retweets wouldn't count, but when people are actually communicating back and forth with you. Favorites. So this is akin to likes on Facebook. Favorites can help you determine readership and sentiment. If you have followers that always fave your tweets, then that's a really good opportunity for you to reach out and delight those individuals. Knowing that favorites are an indicator that people are actually interacting with your tweets. So if we go back and look at impressions and reach, those are maybe eyeballs have seen them, or there's the potential for eyeballs to have seen them, but we still don't know if anybody has actually interacted with that tweet. Having these favorites is a way for you to know that, okay, somebody liked it, somebody read it, somebody thought it was great, and they clicked that heart button. So I would even say that favorites are a more important metric than something like reach, because although on its own reach doesn't give you anything, favorites can actually tell you that people are engaging with your content. Link clicks. This is an important one. So this is a measure of how successful your call to action is. If you use the same call to action more than once and change the day, week, time, change images, and you can see what works best. So, I mean, link clicks is ultimate in terms of if you want to talk about being able to measure your return on investment when it comes to Twitter, something like link clicks can really help you. Of course, you can't measure your return on investment if you're only looking at Twitter. You have to look at your big picture. So let's say you are selling something on your website and you have a Twitter account where you're building your audience. What you want to do is when you tweet a link that includes your product or a link to a page where people can buy your product, you want to find out, first of all, how many people did that tweet reach? So how many people did it actually get in front of? And then how many people clicked those links? And then from there, how many people who clicked that link actually purchased something? And you can do that using Google Analytics and conversion tracking. So you can talk to your web developer about how to do that. And this is a way where you can actually have your Twitter analytics and your Twitter metrics work for you and help you figure out how successful your content is. So if you have a bunch of people clicking links from your Twitter account, getting to your page and not purchasing something or not doing what you want them to do once they get to that page, that's an opportunity for you to assess a broken link in your chain. So is it because your Twitter followers are just click bots? Is it because your web page is broken? Maybe it's not working on mobile. Maybe if you've got a bunch of people following you on Twitter using their phone and your site isn't mobile optimized, that's going to be an issue. Maybe your call to action is just not something that your Twitter followers are engaged with. Do you need to create something very specific to get those Twitter followers to engage? So this is where your Twitter metrics can come into play with your overall business purpose. So again, this is what I'm talking about with website conversions. So measure how successful your calls to action are. Sorry, this graphic did not work. The emojis seem to not work very well sometimes. So this is how you measure how successful your calls to actions are. So if you're using the same call to action more than once, you can change the day of the week, you can change the time, your images, and you can see what works best. So this is similar to the link clicks. This is just another addition to that. So if you're sending something out on Twitter and somebody is clicking that link, and maybe you say, I want you to sign up for my email newsletter, or I want you to sign my petition, or I want you to buy my product. You can measure how many people clicked from Twitter on that link that you shared on Twitter, and then how many people actually followed the action, the desired outcome that you had presented them once they clicked through. So these are all ways that you can leverage your Twitter numbers for measuring your ROI. Again, sentiment. So how do people feel about your brand, your product, your service, whatever? You do need advanced tools to measure this. So Hootsuite has an advanced sentiment scoring. I know that something like the Pardo tools. These are all like Salesforce tools. These are all incredibly expensive. We're talking like thousands of dollars a month. So there are ways for you to get that information, but you can also get this information qualitatively as opposed to quantitatively. So instead of measuring specific sentiment scores, you can really just kind of look through and see, on the whole, are people positive or negative? If you really wanted to get down and dirty with your analytics, you could export all of the tweets that you have, or you could export all of the interactions that you've had with people, all of your mentions, and using an Excel spreadsheet, you can put a little plus and a little minus and do some calculations to see overall if people are happy or sad about your brand. Okay, you can also take a look at hashtag use. So this can help you track a campaign, and it can help you understand how it's resonating with people. So for example, I'm not tracking the hashtag with any specific tool for our course, but I am using Storify to pull information and build content using hashtags. So it's not just about like measuring the specific number of people that are using it. It's also about finding out how people are using it, whether or not it's resonating with people, etc. So, and then of course you're going to get to a point potentially that if your hashtag explodes, then all of a sudden people are going to be hijacking it for news, and then it's not going to be relevant anymore. Measuring tweet engagement is the total number of times a user has interacted with a tweet. So this includes clicks anywhere on a tweet, retweets, replies, follows, likes, links, cards, hashtags, embedded media, your username and profile photo, so or a tweet expansion. So like anytime somebody does anything with your tweet, this is a tweet engagement. And in the Twitter analytics, we'll take a look at that in just a minute. We'll take a look at my backend for Twitter, and you'll see how you can expand and get additional information. And then another one that people often like to measure is influential followers. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a vanity metric, but it can be helpful for you to report on if it's important that your brand is being watched by certain people. So you can use a software like Audience to figure out who would be considered your influential followers. Or if you have already predefined some influential followers, then that can be up to you. So for example, if you are an environmental charitable organization and you're working on water issues, you might say, okay, there are some people that I think should be following me because they're influential on these topics. For example, David Suzuki, if he follows my Twitter account, that would be an influential follower. Alexandra Cousteau, she does a lot of work with water issues all around the world. So if she's following your Twitter account, that would be something worthwhile. Maybe you have different celebrities or well-known people that help out with your cause, or maybe you've got some major donors, for example, that you want, and you would consider those to be influential followers. So there's two ways that you can measure it. You can measure it using a tool like Audience, and they have their predefined algorithms to tell you who they consider to be influential or not. But then also when you look at your own organization, you might understand that there are influential followers that are specific to your organization, be it charitable or otherwise, and that's how you can measure. All right, let's switch over to looking at some dashboards and tools. So there is, let's move this to the end. Let's look at some hashtag tools. So hashtag, this one's Keyhole. So let's take a look at Keyhole. So I pulled this, it takes a few minutes for it to run the actual report. So I pulled this up. So you can do this for free. So you just go to keyhole.co, and I've listed this in part of your additional reading section on our shared drive. So I just searched hashtag SMM, which is social media marketing. And this is a preview of the information that you can get from this tool. So it can tell you how many posts in the past, I believe it's 24 hours that they give you information for. So 703 posts, there are 500 users talking about social media marketing. And then again, here we go with the reach and impressions. So of course they have their definitions below. So this is the unique users that have seen a post containing hashtag SMM. And then these are the number of times that users have seen a post. So this is like, if you see the post more than once, you're going to get counted each time here. And you can also see the frequency. So how often are people posting with the hashtag? What has been the highest number? Clearly something is going on, and people are talking a lot about social media marketing right now. And then of course you can get some top posts. So you can get an example of who's tweeting and some of the individuals tweeting about it, and then also some recent users. So this can be important for you if you want to reach out to certain people who are using a hashtag. You can find a good list of people here instead of having to scroll through Twitter. But you can also look at people who are influential. So if you want to use it based on their clout score, the number of times that they've posted within this set period of time. Perhaps you want to look at people who get the most engagement on their profiles. So that can be an interesting tool for you to use to also help find more Twitter followers. And then, of course, you can look at all of the different top sites. So people are clearly shortening their content using using link shorteners. So you might not be able to get the best bits of information. So similarly, you can see that Social Fave has been sharing some things, but there are a couple of other different pages that are tweeting as well. You can see a world distribution. So this might be better if you're using a hashtag for a specific campaign. You can see how people are using it all around the world. And you can get a sentiment score. So again, I talked about you needing special software to do that. This is a way of getting a snippet of that information in terms of sentiment. This is for free for this hashtag, but of course, if you want to get more robust information, then you pay for a Keyhole account. And this is just an interesting look if you're curious about how people are posting their sources. I find it interesting to look at the share that different technology has. So if people are posting from Android or an iPhone or mobile web, you can see that there is quite a large share of people using mobile. So making sure that your content is mobile optimized when you're using this hashtag will be important. And then if you really want to know the split between male and female, you can get that information as well. So Keyhole is an interesting place to go. If you want to track your hashtags long term, then you are going to have to pay for an account. So that's one drawback. Okay, another option is using something called TweetReach. So again, I pre-ran this report several days ago just to get an example. So I used hashtag Toronto. And so this is based on the past 24 hours, I believe. So you can see how many people that they estimated to have reached. And again, they explain what each of their metrics means. So you can take a look at impressions. So this is the people that saw the tweet. These are the potential people that saw the tweet. You can see how many people were talking about it. You can see what kinds of activity it was. Was it a retweet? Was it an original tweet? Did people just reply about it? And then you can see the top contributors. So here you only get 3 top contributors, but this is really based on their followers. You can see how many people were retweeted the most. So that's an interesting look at different interactions and engagements that people have. So presumably somebody who has higher amounts of retweets could be considered a more engaging account. So it could be somebody that you want to start following for your brand. And then you can see all of the other contributors as well. So the other one, Keyhole had Keyhole had that list of people just using their Facebook profile, their Twitter profiles, and here you get a list of people, and you can see the impressions that their tweets had, their retweets, how many tweets that they posted. So you can get some interesting data there. And then as well, you can see a tweets timeline. So this is basically just pulling all of the tweets from the that were using the hashtag Toronto at the time. So again, you're only getting a small snapshot in time with this because it's a free service. If you do want to use it long term, then you would have to pay for an additional additional services. So let's take a really quick look at hash tracking. So if you go to hashtracking.com, this is the page that you'll land on, and you can basically just explore any type of hashtags, just like what we were looking at before. So let's do again social media marketing, and we're going to use Twitter, and you hit explore. It will prompt you to add the app to your Twitter account, so you just have to click approve or authorize, and you can remove that if you want to later on. So this is just the basic results. So the Twitter collection started at 7:44 p.m. and you can see that it'll list how many original tweets, how many at messages, how many tweets in general, at message tweets, and then retweets. And if you want to see enhanced results, you just click on the see enhanced results button, and this is all of the information that you can get. So again, you can get the most influential people, you can get people who have tweeted the most using that specific hashtag, and you can look at the exposure, so how many timelines was it delivered, how many people did it reach. Again, metrics that don't always necessarily mean the most to you, but you can kind of gauge how popular the hashtag is. And then again, you get this transcript option. So it shows you just recently who has been tweeting with the hashtag. So it could be a way for you to find new Twitter followers if you like. But I think that this most influential thing section is a bit more helpful. So if you click the see more button, you'll be able to see people who are most influential. You're not going to get a very long list of people. Presumably, if you pay for a hash tracking account, you'll get more information. And then if you want some real-time hashtag tracking as well as archived versions of this. So if you want to run this hashtag for an extended period of time, say you've got a campaign going for a month and you want to track your campaign hashtag, if you sign up for a paid version of hash tracking, then you'll be able to run more in-depth analyses. So if you want, you can get yourself a free trial and just give it a whirl and see what it's all about. This used to be a free service, but obviously they know their value, and there aren't a lot of sites that are doing these types of hashtag tracking anymore. So you now have to pay for the more robust analytics. Okay, so we already saw the tweet reach dashboard. Let's take a look at some of the other dashboards that exist. I'm going to pull up Buffer. So this is my Buffer account. You can see that anything that's been tweeted, I mean, I haven't tweeted here recently, but you can see that I've got something in a queue that was from our last video, and then you can take a look at analytics. So Buffer gives you some interesting analytics. It's not different than what you get from using Twitter, but it's a great way to just get everything in a snapshot right here. So you can see that I tweeted a Buffer article about why there's no perfect time to post on Facebook. So that's been a top tweet for me because of the interactions, which really isn't that much. You can see that nobody's clicked through. Even though somebody has retweeted it, they didn't actually click through to see if it was the article that they thought it was. 4 people have hearted it. And you can see that I've had about just under 2,000 potential of people that might have been able to see it. So you can get just kind of those baseline analytics right when you are in Buffer. And then you can get more robust analytics if you upgrade to Buffer for Business. Similarly, you can get more insights if you upgrade as well. But if you take a look at Twitter, so you can just go to analytics.twitter.com, and you should be able to access your analytics by now if you've been actively using your Twitter account throughout this course. You should be out of the weird limbo zone that Twitter keeps you in to make sure that you're not spammy. So this is a summary of my Twitter account. So you can see that I've posted 61 times in the past month. You can see my overall impressions, which, I mean, whatever, it doesn't really matter to me. Profile visits, so this is how many people have actually checked out my profile, which is quite a few. How many people have mentioned me? It's going to be a lot because we're all mentioning, or you guys are all mentioning me in your tweets for the week. So my mentions have gone up exponentially, and my followers have also increased, probably mostly due to this course as well. But if you want to, you can get additional information about your tweets. So if I go into my view all tweet activity and let it take a second. So here you can get more information about your impressions, which again, just on its own, I don't find to be that helpful. Engagements is interesting. So this is how many people are interacting with your post. So if I click on view tweet activity, I can see how people have engaged. So total engagements were 8. 4 of those were likes, 2 were profile clicks, 1 was a retweet, and 1 was a detail expand. You'll see that nobody clicked on the article. Let's see if I can go down and find something where somebody has maybe, okay, I think that there were clicks on this one for sure. So I tweeted about our week 1 discussion summary, it being available. And you can see that there were 200 impressions. That's great. 29 engagements. So 29 people have engaged with this. 18 people actually clicked on the link to go and view our discussion. And we had 4 people click on our hashtag for the course. 3 people liked it. 1 person retweeted. 1 media engagement. So somebody clicked on the photo. Somebody clicked to expand the details, and 1 person clicked to view my profile. So you can get all of this extra information. And for me, if I'm sharing something with a link to something, my call to action was check it out. So I want to know actually how many people clicked that link. That's what's going to be important to me for this specific tweet. So you can go through and look at all of the different metrics that you might have. You can take a look at all of the different interactions that you might have. You can look at all of the different activities that you might have. You can see which tweets are performing better than others. And this is just an interesting way to get more information. Of course, you can export your data as well. So this is what it looks like when you download all of your data from Twitter. It can be very overwhelming, but once you take the time to just take a look at your data, you'll be able to see all of the different information. These last bits are for promoted posts, so I haven't done any promotions of any of my tweets, so there's no information there. But you can get the actual tweet text, the link to the tweet. So if you wanted to look at a specific tweet, you can go back in time, and instead of having to scroll through your whole timeline, you can get that information. You can see what time you tweeted at, and then your impressions, your engagement, all sorts of things. So if you really wanted to start playing around with your activity, you could plot the time that you tweeted and your engagement rates, or just your straight up engagement. Maybe you really want to know how many people clicked on your URL and does that correlate with your time. So you can start playing around deeper with your data. That's something that you can do on your own. I'm not going to sit here and show you how to run all those metrics, but it's something that you can use for sure. So this is the back end of Twitter. That's what it looks like. So definitely take some time to play around with your analytics. The more that you tweet, the better time you'll have at engaging, or the more you tweet, the more information you'll have to get a sense of how people are engaging with your tweets. One last thing I wanted to talk about was Google Campaign Builder. So this is something that you would use in conjunction with Google Analytics. So there's a link to this in your additional resources for this week. Basically, what you can do is you can track custom campaigns. so that you can see how people are engaging with your content. And there's also a URL tracking file that you can use. So it's basically doing this exact same, generating a link for you, but you just put your information in this in the spreadsheet. So what you do is you go File and you make a copy and you add it to your drive, and then you'll be able to edit this file. So it's super handy. You can keep everything all in one spot. So basically what you're doing is you are tagging your original URL with information that shows up in Google Analytics. So when you are looking at your Google Analytics, you can see what your campaign source is, you can see what your campaign medium is, and if you are sharing different blogs, things like that, then you can put your different identifiers in there, and then you can see how effective your Twitter marketing campaigns are, or how effective your click-through rates are based on how people are interacting with things. So maybe you are sending the same blog link out several times, and you're changing the text that goes along with that, and you want to see how well each one is performing. You can change your campaign content so that you can get different information. So that's just one way of using the campaign URL builder.
Okay, so let's talk about assignment 4. This week we are going to be focusing on key performance indicators. So the purpose of this assignment is really to get you thinking about the difference between just the everyday metrics that you're going to be using to measure, your tactical efforts versus the key performance indicators that you need to measure your overarching goals. And this is something that's really important, especially once you start working, and especially for those of you that are working in larger organizations where you're going to be reporting to somebody. They don't necessarily care about the day-to-day tactical metrics. They're really going to want you to create dashboards and have an idea of these key performance indicators to let you know which of your key goals you're meeting. So, if you're trying to increase sales and you know that for every number of Twitter followers that you have, they're worth a certain amount of money because you've done some ROI calculations, then you know that measuring Twitter followers is probably going to be part of your KPIs. So based on our lecture, I want you to go through and access your analytics account at analytics.twitter.com. Then I want you to, so that'll be important just so that you have access to those analytics. You want to get it up and running if you haven't done so already. So I want you to define your key performance indicators, and you should have at least 3. So tell me which of those key metrics you're going to be focusing on for your brand, and then tell me why you're going to be focusing on those key metrics. So this is really, really important. Defining your metrics is important, but then understanding why you're using those ones is even more important. And a lot of us can kind of just get in a flow and say, oh, well, these are the things that I'm going to be measuring. And we forget to justify why in our head. And if we take this time to do that every time we set up our key performance indicators, every time we set up our goals, we really want to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? For what purpose is it serving? Then you become better marketers because you've got a plan and you have an idea of why you're doing things. So please justify why you're using each of those metrics. And then again, remember the importance of determining the metrics that are vital to telling you whether or not you've reached your goals. Those are key performance indicators. And then stripping back those, what can be considered vanity metrics. So, it's really great that your one post got 1,000 likes on it, but what does that do for you overall? How does that help you in the end? And if you can justify measuring those types of metrics, that's fine. But remember, they're vanity metrics if we don't have a justification behind them. So that's very, very important. And then the next part of the assignment that I want you to talk to me about is how often you will check on your metrics. So are you going to be checking on things daily, weekly, monthly, and then justify it? I know that for some people who, it's a one-person shop and maybe you are running a bunch of different marketing initiatives. You're not solely focused on social media. I totally get that. So sometimes people will opt for monthly. And I will say that might not be enough to let you know whether or not your activities are becoming successful. But if you can justify it, then that's great. So as long as you have a justification, then that's perfect. Your deadlines are all in Blackboard, so check Blackboard for when your due date is for this assignment. And that's everything for this week. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on week 5. Bye, guys.